Welcome back to the Capital Press Club Legacy Podcast. I'm Dr. Colin Campbell. And today in Black History, we start with research at the Schomburg Center, which opened up in Harlem back in 1905 on July 14th. The Schomburg Center is where I did some research on the Capital Press Club, and you can find all types of Black history and memorabilia there. Also, 1943, the first national monument to an African American was unveiled, and that is to George Washington Carver, a brilliant scientist who did lots of experiments and research, most of it dealing with peanuts. That's right, peanuts, which we call peanuts, which are not actually nuts, but are actually a legume, more similar to soybeans than they are to, say, walnuts. All right, so George Washington Carver, that was unveiled in Diamond, Missouri. And then we have Between the World and Me, written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And on July 14th, that book was published back in 2014, I believe. So, or 2015, July 14th. So welcome to the Capital Press Club Legacy Podcast. This is our 14th edition on July 14th. And here to talk about the issues with me is my main man in front of the camera, behind the camera, all around, producer, engineer, Derek Kenny. Hey, Derek.
Hello, I'm back. Hey, how's it going, Colin?
How was your week, man?
It was a good week. It's hot. I don't remember it being this hot, but maybe as I was younger, you get used to being outside more and
Yeah.
you have a tolerance for being hot, but I just feel like it was too hot, too hot to get out and do things. How about yourself? How was your week?
Good, man. A lot of stuff going on this week, obviously. Number of celebrity deaths. We also had
Yeah.
possibly an attempted assassination plot, of course. Now, a lot of crazy stuff. Those things, of course, are in the zeitgeist, not so much
Yeah,
specifically about media, which we talk about,
right.
but as far as just watching the news and taking everything that has happened in media this week, it's been a pretty crazy week in some regard, right? So.
Yeah. How do things like this, and I'm not going to use this lightly, the assassination attempt, but do those reawaken the value of quality news and journalism among regular people and then among media organizations? Like, we need to have more staff and better staff. Does that really ring a bell for anyone, do you think? Does that among regular people, among decision makers, among news organizations, does that help at all?
I think what's interesting right now is we're in an age where media are really maligned right now, right?
Hmm.
We are seen as the enemy in a lot of regards, even though people rely on us for their news and information and what they listen to or watch to form their own opinions. At the same time, they listen to us to form their opinions, to learn about the world, to understand what's going on, and just comprehensively understand what's happening. They sometimes use us as the boogeyman, as the enemy, as the people who are just spreading purposely lots of misinformation, which they can criticize us on later and say that we do not have their best interests at hand, when really many of us are agnostic to any specific uh, political affiliation or uh, any type of advocacy. We're really supposed to be pretty neutral. Now, I do realize and do accept and acknowledge that within the Black experience, we tend to take on a more civil rights type of bend because of the neglect of that in the mainstream, some of the struggles and experiences of the Black experience. So when we do stories, a lot of it is from our perspective, which does not always match with the predominant narrative on many different things. So while you have the status quo reporting on a specific issue one way, when it comes to Black America, we experience it in a different way, and we are the only ones telling our stories. So some ways it almost becomes almost like advocacy journalism to some degree, but at the same time, we who are trained in journalism, who have studied journalism, try to be impartial in the grand scheme of things. But even then, we're still definitely maligned and heavily criticized for what we do.
All right, great. That's
Yeah.
a great
So
assessment. And just,
yeah. going to say you were talking about staff, and one of the things we're going to talk about today is some of the layoffs coming out of
Yeah.
CNN. So, as we've talked about the shrinkage of media personnel and the media landscape, uh, be, the past few weeks we've been talking about this, particularly, of course, when it comes to Black media. We see that CNN is also scaling down some of its staff. And who are the hardest hit, Derek? Do we have to
Uh,
guess?
According to this article, the recent equity team are suffering a loss as part of the layoffs. And
Shocker!
if
Shocker!
I had to guess, they were probably part of the team within CNN that ensured that people of different races and ethnicities received the equal, or at least an equitable opportunity to gain employment and maintain employment at CNN. With that being lost, is that what type of loss is that for African American communications professionals at CNN or any organization where the race and equality team are is lost?
Well, like I was saying, I think that could be very impactful. If you look at CNN and the influence that it has nationally, whether you like it or you hate it, it's still part of the media landscape, and it is a prominent part of the media landscape. One of the leading cable news shows that we have right now. It may not be number one, but it's definitely within the top three, right? So when you look at this absence, what could be an absence of Black journalists who are covering Black stories that are not typically covered in the mainstream, then obviously there's going to be a paucity of Black news. There's going to
Yeah.
be the absence of people telling our stories, of sharing the Black experience, of calling attention to various events and issues that people would ordinarily ignore or just be unaware of. So it's kind of like the who dies first in movies. We know who's usually getting killed off in the movies first. Well, now we see who's getting killed first in these round of layoffs. And so it's not a shocker that it'll deal with race and ethnicity. Apparently, not the flavor of the month anymore in the wake of George Floyd's murder back in 2020, when they started a bunch of initiatives to raise racial awareness, to advocate for racial equity. We talked about DEI, which they've tried to rebrand because that obviously has been under fire. We've seen affirmative action be ruled unconstitutional by the highest court in the land. And we know that that court is not the paradigm of purity either, right? But
Right.
they can say that affirmative action is trying to do that is has a criminal uh, intent to it to some degree because it's unconstitutional, right? So it's being unfair. So they did away with that. So as we see this breakdown or degeneration of initiatives that were initially designed to help Black people and people of various ethnicities who are non-white progress, we're starting to see that coming out here in CNN with the loss of racial uh, inclusion and the news that they create. We wondered about that with Don Lemon when he was let go from CNN, and he would talk about a lot of Black issues. And now he's been gone, what, for at least a year now, right? How long has
Mhm.
Don Lemon been gone from CNN?
It
When he
has
had
been quite a while. The
his own
last
show,
time he had his
yeah.
own show, a major show on CNN, and he was
Hmm.
paid quite a penny when he left CNN. And the last big news we've heard from him, at least that I've heard, was when he had an opportunity to have some type of presence on X, Twitter, and he had that infamous interview with Elon Musk, and of course Elon Musk, in his infinite ability to humble himself, or lack of ability to humble himself and answer questions. I think it's fair for everyone, no matter who you are, if you submit yourself to an interview to answer questions, and then you do have the right to not answer questions, but to fire someone so blatantly after an interview in which you did not, um, it did not go your way, it was not the way you'd like it to go, really, really makes it. Maybe we do have a fake news environment. Maybe the veil has been removed by Elon Musk, where media ownership directly um, relates to what type of truth you can share, and who you can tell the truth about. 'Cause
I think
that's
there are
scary.
levels.
Yeah,
I think there are levels. I think with X, formerly Twitter, it's definitely a social media platform, but it's not one of the legacy media
right,
proprietors, right? It's not a legacy media platform. And so when you look at legacy media, which usually has some type of code, some type of ethics where you
hmm
try to present both sides, even though that could be argued as well. You try to present both sides. You try not to engage in propaganda, and you just try to tell the news as it is and report things as they occur. X is a little bit more like what the public is saying. It can be very reactive. It can be racist. It could be misogynist. It could be sometimes misandrist. For those of you, that's the hatred of man, kind of the opposite of misogyny. Not a term we use a whole lot in our nomenclature when we're talking about social issues. But the point is that X wouldn't really follow a lot of the rules or regulations or restrictions that legacy media might. And then when you have someone at the top like Musk who thinks that if we ignore racism, it'll just go away, and you have a journalist who has actually experienced racism, questioning the guy who owns the platform, and then the guy
hmm
who owns the platform says that he's going to cancel the contract. It does make you wonder what he really means when he says that his platform isn't going to engage in censorship. Because to
right,
me, it would seem like with Lemon's termination, he did engage in a type of censorship, right? And because
right.
Lemon wasn't really agreeable to propaganda on Musk's behalf, something that would lionize Musk, he took offense to that and canceled the contract. So now you have Lemon who has his own platform. But we kind of tangentially went away from CNN and
Right.
the
Yeah.
problems that's
Let's,
happening
you
over
know
there.
what? Let's
Why
let's
do you
let's
think?
let's
Why do you
pivot.
think
Let's
these
pivot.
layoffs are happening? Why do you think these
Um,
layoffs are happening, TK?
well, I believe part of it is AI. I think there's better ways, or probably more efficient ways, to do media. I think that some people believe, whether in various degrees of correctness, that we live in a post-racial society and that race doesn't play as much a factor into the decision-making processes within these organizations. So you don't need to have as diverse a staff as you used to. But I think you can do more with less now. And media organizations, number one, the main reason is they're not making enough money to really provide enough value to their ownership or their stockholders. So that's probably why they're trying to find ways to increase their profitability. And one of the easiest ways to do that with something where your capital is human, you have human capital. Like the value of the news organization comes from the journalists, the people that create the content, right? So the place where you can cut is, you can't really. It's not like you have cars or trucks or buildings or manufacturing. You have people, right? So to save money, you cut units. You try to be more efficient. And the thing we're going to hear more and more, I think, in the next few years, and you know this better than anybody, is that you can do more with less with AI. So one reporter can do things that took years of research or days of research to write one article. He might be able to write 2 or 3 articles in 1 or 2 days effectively using reliable AI tools. Is that correct? And actually, before you talk about whether that's correct or not, please remind everyone about your background with AI and when it comes to communications.
Yeah. So one of the things I was going to say is it's interesting that you said they're not making enough money, and one of the things that they've been talking about is corporate greed. So I do wonder if they are not making enough money, so to speak, like it's not profitable, or they just want to make more money because of the avarice that is often associated with capitalism or uh, aggressive capitalism, right? So if they wanted to make more money, right, that's one of the biggest ways that they can strip costs is to fire people, right? People who
hmm
cost money for healthcare. People just want salaries. They want salaries that will keep up with the cost of inflation or cost of life adjustments. They may get pregnant, so now they're not working for a few weeks, but they still have to get paid. So if you just cut them out, right? Cancel their contract. You don't reemploy them. You save tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right? So now you have this technology, artificial intelligence, which, as I tell people, I won't get into the details too much, but it's really more of an expert system. It's not like the cognitive network that we have in our brains that help us process numerous things all at the same time and do different things all at the same time, almost like a type of neurodivergency, but that's very efficient. What we have is with artificial intelligence is a set of algorithms that perform a task that's related to data processing and data collection and then dissemination. And so the issue that I have with relying on artificial intelligence in journalism right now is it collates a lot of content that it sees on the internet or that is pre-existing and then cobbles together new narratives or modified narratives that are then slightly corrected by humans at this point to then be put out to the masses. Now, if you have a dearth of news, almost like we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, if you have a dearth of news about the Black community, the artificial intelligence will take news that is already existing or part of the history of what is already known within its system. And that's how it will create content. It won't look at new news, nuanced news. It can't do it. It's not out there collecting information like a biological human would do. It's only taking information that's already out there. This is something that I did study while I was at Howard, and that's what I got my doctorate in, right? Was in looking at
Mm-hmm.
artificial intelligence. And when you look at, say, my book, Automated Journalism at the Intersection of Politics and Black Culture, it talks about that. It talks about the issues that are facing artificial intelligence, particularly when it comes to coverage of Black America and how accurate it is. If you are just using computer algorithms, it's not going to have that nuance. It's not going to have that new information that's needed to provide context, or at least more context and new context and revised context. It's only going to take what is already out there. And it's up to humans to really make that difference and to really parse that out. Now, if they're using less humans, where's the human capital that's going to be doing that and analyzing the automated journalistic narratives that are being put out there. So, yeah, that's the book there, The Battle Against Digital Hegemony. So, the part about digital hegemony is probably part of another conversation, but it's really looking at the issue of representation by Black people in media if we start to become more reliant on a technology that is not collecting new information, that is not
Mm-hmm.
looking at the nuance of and the importance of representation. That really takes a human to do. So, and then you
Well,
do work in artificial intelligence as well. What do you think the benefits are for using artificial intelligence? I know you talked about a little bit about augmented journalism, which is being able to create an article and then maybe different versions of it
mm-hmm.
because you have much more time and it does it in a much faster way.
The scariest thing about what how AI is developing is that you can create characters with voices that are similar, with looks that are similar to real people, and program what they say, and have them work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and become a trusted and valued resource. Because who can compete with something that's reporting the news with updates 24/7? That's the scary part of AI, is that it can generate video almost instantaneously, where you can create an avatar, meaning just a digital version of someone like me. Like right now, this is me. But a year from now, there may be technology that's affordable to the average organization, not necessarily the average person, but to create me over again and have me say whatever they want me to say. So all you need is writers who will probably be using AI to generate the scripts, and then you have the cheapest form of labor created. You have basically cyber slaves, for lack of a better term, working for you for free, 24 hours a day. And because people have lost their patience for news, and they need news right now, or they need it yesterday, and they want it cheaply, it's just, it's really, I would say it's scary, unless but I will say at the very least it's disruptive. The potential there, um, for content creators to be displaced, for journalists to be displaced, for all types of people in the creative realm. PR folks, PR folks, journalists, video editors. Even people that aren't. I think the technology is there and can be used in a way that's very disruptive for a lot of careers. However, there are movements to help to rationalize the use of it, maybe limit the use of AI, but it's there. So that's what I see in my research and some of the things, the demos I've seen, and some of us are seeing ads right now where it says, "This is my face. Which one is me? This is my voice. Which one is really me?" And this guy to the left is not me, but he sounds and looks just like me. I mean, that's scary on all types of levels because not only are you looking at just keeping your job or having a job in communications, but you're looking at identity theft on a whole new level, or even worse, it's very legitimate, literal impersonations. Anyway, it's a slippery slope. It is scary.
Yeah,
AI has a lot of potential to disrupt everything across the board, not just journalism and
it is.
communications.
It's a huge disruptor. If we remember, just several months ago, Tyler Perry decided that he wasn't going to build a multi-million-dollar studio because of the prognostications regarding AI, where you could create videos and movies basically all from a computer. That is hugely disruptive. If you look at Bruce Willis, who signed over the rights to his voice because he's now dealing with aphasia, which is the part of a cognitive decline that affects your speech and memory, he signed over the rights to his voice so that they can computerize it and use his voice in movies. So those royalties where they use his voice for whatever reason, they could keep going to his family long after he's gone. But what you brought up, Derek, is already happening. In China, they have avatars that deliver the news. So you have avatars, they don't look realistic, at least the last that I checked. They do look more like uh, animation type of avatars, but they're still avatars that they program to give news, deliver news. The thing is that, like you said, these are avatars, so they don't cost money per se on a day-to-day basis. Once you create them, you just program what you need to say, what you want them to say, and they'll say it. They don't need to take a break. They don't need health care. They don't need vacation. They don't need paid leave for to build a family. These are avatars that they just program what they say. Now, right now, maybe
空心
is
菜看
this it?
空心菜，
Oh, there we go. This actually looks more realistic than the last I checked on this. So this guy looks pretty realistic. Is this an AI generated presenter? Yeah, it looks like it. So there you go. You could program this guy. And what one thing I wanted to say is this: you, like you said, you could get somebody who may want to use your likeness, but maybe they want to do it legitimately. They'll come to you and they'll say,
Mhm.
"Hey, Derek, how about we use your likeness? We'll give you $200,000 up front, but once we have your NIL, your name, your image, your likeness, we are going to use it. You get 200,000 up front. You're
Mhm.
struggling with your rent. Hypothetically, this is I'm not saying you are. Hypothetically, you need the money. Let's put it
Mhm.
that way. You say, hey, here, thanks, $200,000. Now they've got you. They've got you in this. You take the pictures, the video. They've got you in this. Now they program anything you say, and that's it.
Let's
And I could
let's
see.
be clear. I can always use $200,000. So
There you go. There you go.
that's very tempting. That's very tempting. I can always use two
Right?
hundred grand. Okay.
And it might even be more. It might even be more. Say you are already an established news person. Maybe you're
Mhm.
looking to retire, or maybe you're just looking to make some extra money. And they say, yeah, we'll give you a 500,000. People kind of know you. Dan Abrams or something like that. We'll give you $500,000 and or $1 million. We'll give you $1 million. You can't work for ABC for like a couple of years or something because we're going to use your image for AI, and then they just program it, right? AI can help program what the AI avatars are saying. You save millions a year as far as a news corporation is concerned. And what a lot of people are saying is that won't happen. That AI right now is only supposed to supplement journalists. But again, We live in a capitalist nation. We know what happens when we have the means of production is reduced, and how that can be exploited, and how businesses and corporations want to make more and more money. So if this, what they're saying to me, is what we call gaslighting, because I believe over time, as we become more comfortable with artificial technology, artificial intelligence, it's going to seep more and more into our culture. So to have an avatar delivering the news instead of a real person is going to be more acceptable. I mean, why not? It's just person. Like for example, the stereotype about anchors and presenters, as they say overseas right now, is that they just recite the news, which we know isn't true. A lot of them are managing editors. A lot of them produce newscasts, things like that. There's more to being an anchor than just reading off of a teleprompter. But that's the perception from a lot of people right now. Well, what if they actually did that? Create an avatar, and all it does is just recite what it's being programmed to say. It's going to be a lot more acceptable, and it'll save companies so much money. And I think that's the trajectory we're on, even though a lot of people
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah.
talk about
All right. So there's a couple of epiphanies, a couple of follow-ups.
it.
CNN, after several quarters over the last few years leading up into 2021 or 2022, had $1 billion profit, but as recently as 2023, lost about a quarter of that profit due to the quick introduction and elimination of CNN Plus, which was, of course, a over-the-top app to get CNN content. So your idea or your notion that, or our notion that it could be fueled by profits or lack thereof, or to cover up for a failed business venture, might be the case. Might be the case. Also, I think it might be a good idea for us to run through a few alternative careers for journalists, because I don't want to just talk about, well,
That's a good
there's
idea.
gloom
What do
and
you think?
doom. You're no longer a journalist. So I looked up a few from Indeed. So let's check out what we have here. We have non-alternative careers for journalists.
Blogger.
Okay, blogger. Not
They're
bad,
getting
not
paid.
bad.
Look at that. For
Hey,
almost 40,000 a year, Derek. Enough to
hey,
afford
you know
your
what?
rent for what? 6 months?
That's that's start. That's a starter. That's a starter. Social media manager. You got 55,933 per year. You have a communications specialist, which is 55,600 per year. Copywriter, 58,458 per year.
That
Editor,
one
sixty
actually would be
thousand.
that one definitely would be handy, even if you work for a company that uses AI, right? Because you
Yeah,
might need someone to go over the copy if there are grammar errors or there's
yeah,
some inconsistencies, because that's still needed right now. Like I said, AI is not does not exactly replicate the processes of the brain. It's only,
right.
has pretty much one function, so it still needs human
Yeah,
intervention. Yeah.
and these are fact checkers too. Like, fact checking is needed as well. You got technical writers at 74,296.
Hmm.
Content marketer, public relations specialist, and I don't think these actually tell you how seasoned these people are. To me, these seem like entry level, not entry level, but maybe mid level, entry level positions and salaries. But it kind of, I believe it helps to set the stage that it's not the end of the world for a communications professional. If you lose your job in journalism, there are other ways you can use your communication skills to shape your craft and to do more, especially with these startup companies. NVIDIA, and you have, like, of course, people need communications professionals to help shape the narrative. And even with AI and all that stuff, you still need the creativity of human beings to connect with other human beings. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that remains to be the case.
Yeah, I think so too. You're always going to need that human to human connection. I do think, though, that that also will be mediated as we look at platforms like Meta, as we look at these different types of virtual reality platforms that are being developed, that are being used. People are going to use those as intermediaries between people. If you talk about, I think one is it Bumble? I think it's either Bumble or Tinder, a popular dating app. They thought about using avatars to connect with other people because of some of the fears and anxieties that people have of interacting directly. And you could see this almost as a generational shift where you have those from the silent generation or boomer generation who would call you directly. Gen Xers have been able to switch back and forth between texting and calling. And then you have
Mm-hmm.
millennials who will, some of whom will say they have anxiety if they get a direct phone call. They'd rather text all of their content. And then you
Yeah,
have Gen
yeah.
Y dealing with its own mental health issues, and
Mm-hmm.
that also is linked to communications and the way we communicate. Some of them would rather just exist in a virtual reality space. So even though the human to human connection will always be important for us to thrive as a society, it may come in different forms that deal with computers, that deal with
Yeah.
digitization, also deal with artificial intelligence.
Well, here's to Holly Berry creating artificial intelligence to keep me company. I think I may invest in that technology.
There you go.
Or
There you go.
cut me off the episode when I'm
And
done.
you know, and that may not be too far from the future, actually, when you have cybernetics and robotics that have also progressed. But of course, that's a totally separate conversation for media. But we, but we do hope that you learned something today in our podcast, our 14th edition, where we talk off at CNN. Some of the alternative. All right, there we go. We got our audience chiming in there, and some of the alternative jobs that you can have, but also the disruptive culture or the disruptive nature of artificial intelligence and what that may mean as far as implications for media in the future. So we hope that you join us next time for the Capital Press Club Legacy Podcast, joined by my man Derek Kenny. I'm Dr. Colin Campbell, and we'll see you next time.